Welcome back to the Refined Lad, everybody. You already know what this channel is about. This channel is about improving upon yourself, body, soul, mind, and spirit, as well as emotional development, dating, finance, you name it. But today I was very prompted by a situation that I had a few weeks ago in regards to dealing with people who are passive aggressive. And you might find this in a coworker. It's very common within the business realm of things, right? Whether you work for a big company, or you work at a grocery store, or you work at a franchise or a chain restaurant, no matter where you go, you are always going to deal with somebody who has some level of passive aggressiveness. And it's interesting because passive aggressiveness really is a root insecurity. And if we're looking at childhood, and if we're looking at childhood attachment styles, these people grew in an environment that was cultivated where they were not allowed to express their emotions. If they had to express their emotions, they had to do it in a subtle way in order to get what they wanted. But I spent a lot of time talking about people's trauma and people's childhood. For the benefits of this video, I'm going to talk about the nitty-gritty. I want to talk about how to actually handle these people. Because there's a level we get to, right, where these people genuinely want to change, and it's more on a subconscious level that they're operating and they don't want to harm others. But then you have people here on the other side that genuinely enjoy hurting others, manipulating them, and using them as batteries, basically that are energy vampires that have no use. So common signs, right? Common signs of somebody who's passive aggressive. A big one is stonewalling that I talk to you guys about pretty frequently. And stonewalling is like if I have a conversation with you and I go, "Can you please do the dishes?" and there's no response. It's just, stonewalling is just another name for the silent treatment. And women are actually very good at this. Women are known for doing this because us men don't read women very well, if we're being completely honest, but at the same time, women don't know how to communicate their needs effectively in a manner that a man can understand because we have two very different biological wirings within the brain. Let's just say it's a husband and wife. The wife is asked to do the dishes by the husband, and the husband is waiting on a response, and she doesn't say anything. Now, the other place that this can go is she uses a sarcastic remark, right? Something very subtle that is almost like what we would consider to be getting that last word in. It's like a little quip, like a little lash, just because she's so upset that he had asked. Or the other option is that she listened to what he said, didn't respond, and then he asks it again, and then she says she's going to get to it, but she's kind of like dragging her feet along, right? Or vice versa. She asks him to do the dishes, and he doesn't want to do the dishes, and then he says something to her like, "Well, I was going to do the dishes anyways, you just weren't patient." This is an example of passive aggression, and we find it very common in relationships, especially marriage. So it is very important to know the reasoning of why. Another example, unfortunately, that is also used in relationships is this concept of keeping score of when people do wrong. And I personally don't like this because I've had it used against me. As men, I think one of our biggest fears is having our vulnerabilities, maybe that we express a vulnerability to a woman, right? And the woman's listening to it, and in the moment, right, in the moment, because I talk about the emotional levels of a woman, she's listening to the man, but later on something happens that the woman disagrees with. Let's say they get in a verbal argument. She then will use those same vulnerabilities that he shared, something very private and personal and that was deep to him, as a way of getting back to him. We need to be very careful about how we do this in our relationships, in our marriages, and really just even in the workplace. Our goal is not to keep score. People with passive aggression tend to keep score. "Oh, you wronged me in XYZ time on this date." What does that sound like? That sounds like somebody who is trying to be manipulative. That sounds like somebody who does not want to change. Now, the beauty of passive aggression, right, is the whole aim, and for the purpose of this video, again, I'm talking about people who are deliberately being passive aggressive. We already know that subconsciously some people don't act on those impulses. I'm talking about the worst of the worst, people who are just really crappy individuals. So people with this, their whole emphasis, right, the whole goal, think about a bullseye, right, and you got a dart, and you're in the bar, right, you're in a dive bar, and you're going for it, and you just shoot it right through. You shoot it right through the bullseye, and bam, right there. Their emphasis is to take little shots at your ego, right? Think about a boxing match. They usually bring their arm out, right? They bring their arm out to see how much distance they have that it would take to punch. How close can they get the person? They play mind games. They get inside the individual, especially like in the boxing ring. So I want you to think about, when you see somebody who's being passive-aggressive, I want you to think about low blows in a boxing ring. Because they are taking tiny shots at your ego to get you all flustered. We talk about all the time, masculine energy is directive. Masculine energy does not waver. It does not matter about all the things that are going on around this world. It's like a giant ship in a storm, right? Let's say on the Atlantic. And you're coasting and there's choppy waves, but you have to keep the mast up. You have to keep the sails going. You have to keep steady on the wheel. And everybody has to be doing their job. That is how a man should be. A man needs to be that ship in the crashing waves, in the midst of a rain, in the midst of thunder and lightning and unprecedented events of nature. He has to be that calm. So when the passive aggressiveness comes at you, you need to be that calm in the storm. And you need to be non-reactive. We talk about this all the time. Non-reactivity is the key, I think, to probably 75% of life's problems. It's when a man that gets worked up and he's startled and he's in himself and he's too much in his emotional mind, right? His emotional capacity that he's using. And he's not using the logical side of things to just kind of take a breather, take a step back and analyze, that he gets himself into these situations. So this event that I had recently, right? This situation I had come up a few weeks ago. I was helping somebody, and I did something they didn't like. I was doing a task in a way that somebody didn't like things done. Now, let me preface that this person did not state that it couldn't be done in this manner, right? So they come along, they ask me what happened, I tell them what happened, and at first they're like, okay, well, they kept on asking questions. Well, eventually I answered all the questions. We got to the point of silence, right? And I was reading, people who have passive-aggressive tendencies will tend to bait you, right? They want you to come in on your hands and knees begging for forgiveness. And that's not us, dog. These people will use the kindness in your heart, right? They use that silence, that cutting silence, so that you feel sorry for what you did, even though you weren't told specific instructions. So this is what I mean. These people that are being actually manipulative and they know what they're doing, using you as battery. I talked to you before in a video about energy. These people are energy vampires that will suck the living life out of you. So it goes on, and we stop talking for a while, and I'm trying to fill this silence, right? And I was reading this. Information after the fact because I wouldn't have done it otherwise. But I said, well, is there any way that I can help you with this? And they were like, no, like it's fine, like don't worry about it, we're good. And so I looked them in the eye and I said, just so you know, I'm a person that would rather have you come to me, right? Come to me if you have an issue before you go to anybody else. And I will address the issues that I need to address within myself. I will try to remedy the situation. This is somebody who has balls and doesn't mind confrontation, okay? I am a brand new man. But getting back to this topic, so the person that I was dealing with in that situation, I had told them, please come to me if you have any questions, right? Address me, because something that is lacking in society today is men don't want to ask men or even women. They're scared to rile people up. They're scared to confront people. And I understand that not every personality wants to be in people's face. I understand that not every personality wants to be always going and has this fire lit under them. Like, There's some people that are fire and there's some people that are water. But what we have to understand is that because of this epidemic of men, of boys, right? Of boys that don't know what it's like to be a man. Maybe they didn't grow up with a male father figure, right? Maybe they were raised by a mother who told them a male father figure that you had in your life wasn't doing this for us. And you can, name X, Y, Z. But we have a real plague here. And so I think a lot of this passive aggressiveness stems from that father role that we have looking up to. But we have to learn, just because I'm born a certain way does not mean I have to inherit the same sins of my family, of my generational line. I can choose to break those things. Getting back to the topic, this dealing with this person is just a very small micro matter, right? A microcosm of a much larger issue that is found in our society. So the kid says to me, oh no, like we're cool, we're fine. And now usually men logically, because we have to explain ourselves, will say, yeah, I'm good, I'm fine. That literally means I'm fine. I'm going to be direct with you. But again, we have that passive aggressiveness, right? So fast forward later, it turns out that this kid couldn't keep his mouth shut. He lacked the ability to just either keep things to himself, or he felt like he needed to rile stuff up. And this to me is feminine energy, right? We talk about this. Women sometimes in a relationship, when it's going very well, might stir something up, right? They might just stir the pot just a little to see if you are still the man that they first fell in love with. And this doesn't stop in dating. This doesn't stop in relationships. This doesn't stop in marriage. It only stops when we all die. But for a man to be doing that, for a man to be stirring up the pot and sitting back, this is what I think of people who like to instigate all the time, right? They're acting out of this really rapid feminine energy because it's chaotic, right? It's not directed, it's not masculine, it's not focused. There isn't a real reasoning why. It's more like, well, I just want to make myself feel better about a situation. Well, I'm insecure, so I'd rather see this person suffer. Like, that is not how a man should be thinking. Fast forwarding, I'm leaving about the end of the day, and somebody comes to talk to me who's a little higher up and says basically, somebody told me that this happened, just want to let you know, like, don't let it happen again. So the premise being, this kid reminded me of somebody that I grew up with in second grade. His name is Brian. And without getting into the entire story, this kid was a weasel. Like, I would literally tell him one thing and he would sprint out of wherever I was telling him, right? It could be the classroom. It could be outside. And he would run to the next teacher to say what I just said. This kid just liked to get people in trouble. If you are a man that is actually on your purpose, on your grind, does not give two Fs what everybody else thinks, and it's just you and your mission, you do not have the time to play around, right? Play reality TV, to mess with other people's relationships, to mess with other people's work, to get a rise out of people. You're not focused on that because you want to build something. You want to build an empire. So these people are going to claim that everything's good and they'll just move on, right? Everything's chill, man. Like, we'll just leave it be. Let sleeping dogs lie. But then they go and do this weaselly behavior where they go behind your back. I don't know about you, but this is not the kind of company that I want to keep when it comes to best friends, especially men. Men are supposed to have each other's backs. If my boy does not have my back, I would rather be alone. And this is somebody who would throw me under the bus given the first chance. That's not a real one. So that being said, what can we do to handle people with passive aggression? And the simplest answer, because I don't like to, believe it or not, I don't like to get in arguments. I don't like to just fight people all the time. It is tiring. I'm like very chill. I like to think that I'm very chill. I'm a very focused person, but I'm very chill. And so what I would do in that situation, let's say you're in close quarters. Say you're at work and you see this person again. I want you to avoid them. It's just like the school bully on campus. They want to get your goat. They want to get a rise out of you. They want to see what you're made of. They want to play games with you for their own enjoyment. And frankly, I'm not going to give them that. I'm not going to give them that kind of energy. But then the bottom line comes out like this. If there's repeated attempts, one of the things that I was taught at a very young age is if somebody continues to do things to you that are unethical, right, or illegal, you need to document those things so when the time comes, you can confront that person with what they did. Because some people, passive-aggressive people, will tend to deny, right? They'll deny the concept. They'll deny the subject at hand, or they'll try to change the entire wording around. You don't give them that chance. Because inevitably, at some point, if this person continues to just poke you, right? You're poking the bear. Eventually, that bear is going to get out of its freaking den and it's going to bring its claws out and it is going to harm you in every way possible. You are going to confront them. You're going to look them in the eyes and you're going to say, why don't you expand on that? Why don't you explain that to me? Oh, okay. You want to take one of these things? You want to take one of my things? Rather than using all these generic terms, why don't you come right out and say what you want? Simple as that. The biggest thing is if you have to work with these people, outwork them. Outwork these bastards. Because they're not going to last long because the only cover that they have is that little thin layer of deception that they got everybody going under, right? They're the same people that kind of operate out of a blackmail. You wronged me, I'm holding this against you, and I'm waiting to play that card. I don't play games with these people. You won't see them in my circle. The only way to lure a snake out is to bait it. And again, I'm not saying intentionally go out of your way, but I'm saying if these things continue to happen, you're going to expose that snake. Eventually, you're going to get that weasel out of the hole. You're going to get that snake out of the ground, and you're going to bring the light, and you're going to show that light on them, and you're going to let people see them for who they really are. Because you can only keep up the act for so long. So if you like what I provided to you today, I want you to hit the like button, comment below, and always subscribe. I'm happy to always share stuff with you guys. And we need men more than anything in this society today. As always, stay frosty.